Have you ever felt like you're capable of so much more, but something keeps holding you back? Maybe it's that little voice in your head saying, "I don't have the time," or "I'll start tomorrow." It's frustrating, isn't it? We've all been there, stuck in a cycle of excuses that seem harmless, but quietly stop us from reaching our full potential. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 worst excuses that keep people stuck, and more importantly, how you can overcome them. The wisdom of Stoicism, shared by thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, teaches us that the greatest barriers are often the ones we create in our own minds. Once we identify and confront them, everything changes. Before we get into it, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video. It's a small action, but it goes a long way in helping spread these ideas to more people who might need them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time. Hit that bell so you don't miss future videos about living a more stoic and purposeful life. Now think about your own life for a moment. What's a goal you've had for a while? Something you've dreamed about achieving, but just haven't been able to reach yet? What's been stopping you? Is it really the world around you, or is it something inside? This can be a hard truth to face, but most of the time, it's not our circumstances. It's the excuses we tell ourselves. The good news is, once you recognize those excuses, you can overcome them. As we go through these 5 excuses, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Which of these excuses feels the most familiar to you? Maybe it's "I don't have enough time" or "I'm not ready yet." Whatever it is, this video will help you see those roadblocks for what they are and give you the tools to move past them. Take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's explore how to stop letting excuses control your life and start taking control of your own journey. Ready? Let's begin. Excuse number 1. I don't have enough time. You wake up, glance at the clock, and already feel behind. The day hasn't even properly started, and your mind is racing through the endless list of things to do. Work deadlines, errands, family responsibilities, all pulling at your attention. And in the middle of all this, there's a voice in your head whispering about the things you truly want to accomplish. But then comes the excuse, almost like a reflex. I don't have enough time. It's the same story day after day, week after week. Sound familiar? The truth is, this excuse feels so real because we all live busy lives. Time seems to slip away faster than ever, and the demands on us never seem to stop. But here's something the Stoics understood deeply. The problem isn't the lack of time, it's how we choose to use it. Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. In other words, life is fleeting, and we can't afford to waste it on things that don't truly matter. Time isn't something we can create more of, it's something we need to master. Imagine this for a moment. You're sitting at home with an hour of free time. What do? Do you scroll through social media, lose yourself in a TV show, or simply say, "I'll just relax for a bit"? It's easy to let time slip through our fingers without even realizing it. And then, when the day is over, we look back and wonder where it all went. This isn't unique to you, it's something we all struggle with. But the first step to overcoming it is recognizing this pattern. The Stoics believed that every moment is an opportunity. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Think about that for a second. How much of your time is truly spent on things that matter? It's not that you don't have enough time, it's that time is being used on things that don't move you closer to your goals. So, how do we change this? Let's start with priorities. What are the things that truly matter to you? Is it your career, your family, learning a new skill? Write them down. Seriously, grab a piece of paper or open a notes app and make a list. This might seem simple, but when you write your priorities down, you're forcing yourself to confront what really deserves your time. Most of us never take this step, and as a result, we drift from one task to the next without clear direction. Once you've identified your priorities, it's time to examine your habits. Look at how you spend your day, hour by hour. You might find that a lot of your time is being eaten up by things that aren't meaningful. Social media is one of the biggest culprits. Studies show that the average person spends over 2 hours a day scrolling. Think about that. 2 hours a day adds up to more than 30 full days a year. What could you accomplish if you redirected even half of that time towards something meaningful? Now let's talk about perfectionism. One of the reasons people say they don't have time is because they think everything has to be done perfectly. They tell themselves, if I can't give 100%, it's not worth starting. But here's the thing. Progress, no matter how small, is always better than perfection. Let's say you want to write a book, but you only have 15 minutes a day to work on it. In 15 minutes, you could write a paragraph or two. Over time, those small efforts add up to something significant. The Stoics understood this too. They believed in taking consistent, purposeful action instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Another powerful tool is structuring your time. Instead of waking up and letting the day unfold randomly, take a few minutes the night before to plan out what you want to accomplish. Identify the 3 most important tasks for the day and tackle those first. These are often referred to as your MITs, or most important tasks. Even if the rest of the day gets derailed, you'll have made progress on what truly matters. Of course, distractions are everywhere. How often do you pick up your phone to check one thing, only to find yourself lost in a rabbit hole of notifications? One way to combat this is to set clear boundaries. Designate specific times to check your email or social media and stick to them. When you're working on something important, put your phone in another room or use apps that block distractions. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's incredible how much more focused and productive you can be when you're not constantly interrupted. But let's address another layer of this excuse, the emotional one. Sometimes when we say, I don't have enough time, what we really mean is, I'm afraid. Maybe it's fear of failure or even fear of success. We use busyness as a shield to avoid facing these deeper emotions. The Stoics were very clear about this. Epictetus said, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Often, it's our perspective on time, not time itself, that's the real issue. To overcome this, it's essential to practice self-awareness. When you catch yourself saying, I don't have enough time, pause and ask, is this really true? Challenge that thought. You might realize it's not about time at all. It's about priorities, habits, or even fear. By bringing awareness to these moments, you can start making better choices. Lastly, remember to be kind to yourself. No one manages their time perfectly every day. There will be moments when life feels chaotic, and that's okay. What matters is that you approach each day with intention and keep coming back to what's important. When you do this, you'll find that time starts working for you, not against you. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I don't have enough time, take a step back and reflect. Is it really about time, or is it about how you're choosing to spend it? The good news is, you have the power to make that choice, starting right now. Excuse number 2, I'm not ready yet. Have you ever told yourself, I'll start once I'm ready? Maybe it's a project you've been dreaming about, a skill you've wanted to learn, or even a big life change. And yet, every time you think about it, there's that hesitation, that little voice saying, not now, maybe later. I just need to be more prepared. It feels comforting, doesn't it? The idea that someday, when everything aligns perfectly, you'll finally take that leap. But here's the hard truth, that perfect moment you're waiting for, it doesn't exist. And the longer you wait, the more elusive it becomes. Think back. How many times have you waited for the right time, only to realize that months or even years have passed, and you're still in the same place? It's frustrating, and it's a cycle we all fall into. The Stoics understood this all too well. They believed that courage doesn't come from waiting, it comes from action. Epictetus said, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, stop waiting for things to feel perfect. Instead, start where you are with what you have. That's the key. Let's break this down. Why do we feel the need to wait until we're ready? For most of us, it boils down to fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. These fears are powerful, and they disguise themselves as excuses like, "I just need more time to prepare," or "I'll wait until I have more experience." But here's the thing, waiting doesn't eliminate fear. If anything, it makes it grow. Imagine this, you're standing at the edge of a cold swimming pool, hesitant to jump in. The longer you stand there, the colder the water feels, and the harder it becomes to take that leap. But the moment you jump, the fear dissolves, and you realize it wasn't nearly as bad as you thought. That's what taking action does. It diminishes fear. Every small step you take builds momentum, and momentum is the antidote to hesitation. Now let's talk about perfectionism. How many times have you told yourself, "If I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all"? It's a mindset that keeps us paralyzed. But here's what the Stoics teach us. Perfection is an illusion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Don't wait for perfection. It doesn't exist. Just begin." Life isn't about perfect execution. It's about consistent effort. The smallest actions, done repeatedly, create the biggest changes over time. Think of it this way. Let's say you want to write a book. The idea feels overwhelming, doesn't it? You imagine sitting down and writing hundreds of pages, and the sheer size of the task makes you freeze. But what if, instead of focusing on the entire book, you just focused on writing one paragraph today? That's it, just one paragraph. Tomorrow, you write another, and the next day, another. Before you know it, those small steps add up, and the book begins to take shape. So, how do we stop waiting and start acting? Here are a few strategies to help. First, reframe your thinking. Instead of asking, "Am I ready?" ask yourself, "What's the smallest step I can take right now?" It doesn't have to be perfect or even significant. It just has to be something. Maybe it's sending an email, signing up for a class, or setting aside 10 minutes to plan. Taking even the tiniest action shifts your mindset from hesitation to progress. Second, remind yourself that failure is part of the process. No one succeeds without stumbling along the way. Every mistake you make is a lesson, and every lesson gets you closer to your goal. The Stoics saw failure not as a defeat, but as a teacher. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." When you view failure as growth, the fear of starting begins to fade. Third, focus on what you can control. The fear of not being ready often stems from worrying about things outside our control, how others will judge us, whether circumstances will cooperate, or if we'll succeed. But the Stoics teach us to let go of what we can't control and focus entirely on what we can. You can't control the outcome, but you can control your effort, and that effort, no matter how small, is what matters. Another powerful technique is setting deadlines. When you don't set a timeline for yourself, it's easy to keep pushing things off indefinitely. Commit to a specific date to start, no matter how unprepared you feel. For example, tell yourself, "By Monday, I'll have made my first attempt." Deadlines create accountability, and accountability creates momentum. Finally, surround yourself with reminders of progress. Celebrate every small win, no matter how insignificant it might seem. Did you write one page? Celebrate it. Did you research the first step of your project? Acknowledge it. These small victories reinforce the habit of action and keep you moving forward. Remember this, waiting for the perfect time is like chasing the horizon. The closer you think you're getting, the further it moves away. The only way to get closer to your goals is to start walking toward them, one step at a time. And the best part? Once you begin, you'll realize that you were more ready than you thought. So the next time you hear yourself saying, "I'm not ready yet," stop and ask, what's one thing I can do right now to begin? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something, because the truth is, you'll never feel completely ready. But that's okay. You don't need to be ready. You just need to start. Excuse number 3, I'll start tomorrow. Let's be honest. How many times have you told yourself, tomorrow's the day? You know what I mean. Tomorrow is when you're going to hit the gym, start eating healthier, finish that project, or finally tackle that thing you've been putting off. But somehow, when tomorrow comes, it turns into, well, maybe the day after tomorrow. And so the cycle continues. Sound familiar? We all do this. Procrastination has this sneaky way of making us feel like we're still in control, even while we're avoiding what we need to do. It's comforting, isn't it? Telling yourself you'll do it later feels like a solution. Except it's not. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said it best. While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. It's a hard truth, but an important one. Time doesn't wait for us, no matter how much we'd like it to. Imagine this. It's a quiet evening. You're scrolling through your phone, maybe binge-watching a show you've already seen before. In the back of your mind, there's a little voice saying, you should be working on that goal. But instead of getting up, you say, it's fine, I'll start fresh tomorrow. You feel a brief sense of relief, like you've pushed the responsibility just far enough away to relax. But deep down, you know you're only fooling yourself. Procrastination isn't just about laziness, it's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of the unknown. Starting something means confronting those fears, and that's not always easy. But here's the thing, waiting doesn't make the fear go away. It just makes it harder to start. The Stoics believed that action is the cure for hesitation. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, stop worrying about how perfect your start will be and just begin. Now let's address the big question, why do we keep putting things off until tomorrow? One reason is that tomorrow feels limitless. It's this magical place where you imagine you'll have more time, more energy, and more motivation. But the truth is, tomorrow is no different from today. It's the same 24 hours, the same distractions, and the same excuses, unless you decide to change your approach. Here's how you can break free from the I'll start tomorrow mindset. First, remind yourself of the fleeting nature of time. Seneca wrote, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. This might sound harsh, but it's a wake-up call. Every day you postpone something, you're losing time that you'll never get back. So instead of saying, I'll start tomorrow, try saying, what can I do today, even if it's just a small step? Next, make starting easy. One of the biggest barriers to action is feeling overwhelmed by the size of the task. Let's say you want to start exercising, but the idea of a full workout feels daunting. Instead of aiming for perfection, start small. Commit to just 5 minutes of stretching. Once you've started, you'll often find it easier to keep going. The key is to lower the activation energy required to begin. Another powerful strategy is to set clear, specific deadlines. When you tell yourself, I'll get to it eventually, you're giving your brain permission to delay indefinitely. Instead, create a sense of urgency. For example, instead of saying, I'll start my project soon, say, I'll spend 20 minutes on it today at 4 p.m. Adding a specific time creates accountability and makes procrastination harder. Now, let's talk about your environment. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to procrastinate when your surroundings are full of distractions? The notifications on your phone, the clutter on your desk, it all adds up. Take control of your space. Turn off unnecessary notifications, tidy up, and create an environment that encourages focus. This might seem like a small thing, but it can make a huge difference. And what about motivation? Many people think they need to feel motivated to start, but the truth is, action often comes before motivation, not the other way around. Have you ever forced yourself to start something and then felt motivated once you got into it? That's how it works. The Stoics didn't rely on fleeting emotions like motivation. They relied on discipline and the principle of doing what needs to be done, whether they felt like it or not. Let's also address the emotional weight of procrastination. Every time you put something off, it lingers in the back of your mind like a nagging presence. You can't fully relax because you know you're avoiding something important. This creates stress and guilt, which only makes procrastination more tempting as a way to escape those feelings. Breaking this cycle starts with forgiving yourself. Accept that you've delayed, but don't dwell on it. Instead, focus on what you can do right now to move forward. Lastly, celebrate progress, no matter how small. If you've spent months putting off a goal, even the smallest action deserves recognition. Did you write a single paragraph? Great. Did you spend 5 minutes researching something? Fantastic. These little wins build momentum, and momentum makes it easier to keep going. The next time you hear yourself saying, "I'll start tomorrow," stop and ask yourself, why not today? Maybe you won't accomplish everything in one day, but starting now means you're already ahead of where you'd be if you waited. Remember, the Stoics believed that action is the foundation of a good life. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. So let today be the day you take that first step, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the truth is, life is happening right now, and the best time to start living it fully is this very moment." Excuse number 4, I can't do it alone. Have you ever looked at a goal or challenge and thought, I just can't do this on my own? That sinking feeling of isolation, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and no one's there to help. It's a tough place to be, and I get it. We all feel that way sometimes. Life is full of moments where we feel small in the face of big challenges. But here's the thing, while it's okay to feel like you can't do it alone, it's not okay to let that feeling stop you, because the truth is, no one does it entirely alone. Even the most successful people rely on others in some way, whether it's guidance, support, or just encouragement to keep going. The Stoics understood this balance deeply. They believed in self-reliance, yes, but they also recognized the importance of choosing the right people to walk alongside you. Seneca put it beautifully, associate with those who will make a better man of you. What he meant is that while your path is yours alone to walk, the company you keep can either lift you higher or hold you back. So, if you're telling yourself, I can't do it alone, it's time to take a closer look, not just at yourself, but at your circle. Let's start by addressing the feeling of isolation. It's easy to feel like no one understands what you're going through. Maybe you've tried to share your struggles, but the response wasn't what you hoped for. Or maybe you're hesitant to reach out at all because you're worried about being judged or dismissed. If that's how you're feeling, I want you to pause and remind yourself you're not alone in this. Everyone at some point feels overwhelmed. It's a universal experience. But here's where Stoic philosophy can help. The Stoics taught that while we can't control other people or the support they offer, we can control how we approach our challenges. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." This means you have a well of strength inside you, strength you might not even realize you have. Yes, you may need help, but that doesn't mean you're powerless without it. You have more resilience than you think. So how do you balance self-reliance with seeking support? Let's break it down. First, take responsibility for your part. If you're waiting for someone to come along and magically solve your problems, you'll be waiting forever. You need to take the first step, even if it's small. Ask yourself, what can I do right now with the resources I already have? Maybe it's researching the next step in your journey or organizing your thoughts. Taking action, however small, builds momentum. Second, don't be afraid to ask for help. This doesn't mean handing over your responsibility to someone else. It means seeking guidance or support where it's needed. Think of it like climbing a mountain. The climb is yours to make, but a guide can show you the safest path, and a friend can encourage you when the trail gets steep. It's not weakness to ask for help. It's wisdom. Now let's talk about building the right kind of support network. Seneca's advice about associating with the right people is crucial here. Take a moment to reflect. Who's in your circle? Are they people who lift you up, or do they bring you down? Surround yourself with individuals who inspire you, challenge you, and genuinely want to see you succeed. This could be friends, mentors, colleagues, or even an online community of like-minded people. The key is quality, not quantity. But what if you don't have that kind of support right now? Start by looking for opportunities to connect. Join a group related to your interests, attend events, or even reach out to someone you admire. Building meaningful connections takes time, but it's worth the effort. And remember, the right people won't magically appear. They'll be drawn to you when you show up authentically and take steps toward your goals. Here's another important point. Beware of negative influences. There may be people in your life who, intentionally or not, hold you back. They might dismiss your dreams, criticize your efforts, or encourage you to stay in your comfort zone. It's not easy to distance yourself from people you care about, but if someone is consistently draining your energy or undermining your progress, it's worth re-evaluating that relationship. And let's not forget the role of self-compassion in all of this. Feeling like you can't do it alone can bring up a lot of self-doubt. You might start to believe that you're not capable or that something's wrong with you for needing help. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Everyone needs support at times, and everyone struggles. The Stoics weren't superhuman. They were people who faced challenges just like you. What set them apart was their mindset. Remember, asking for help or leaning on others doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The key is to strike the balance between self-reliance and interdependence. Take ownership of your journey, but don't hesitate to reach out when the path gets difficult. So what can you do today? Start by reflecting on the people around you. Who inspires you? Who supports you? And if you're feeling stuck, ask yourself this: what's one step I can take right now to move forward? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend, finding a mentor, or even just reminding yourself of your own inner strength. The next time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't do it alone," stop and remember, you don't have to do it all by yourself, but you also don't have to wait for someone else to start. You have the power to take the first step, and when you do, you'll often find that the support you need is closer than you think. So, who's in your circle? And what's one step you can take today to start building the life you want? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Excuse number 5, it's too hard. Have you ever looked at something you wanted to achieve and thought, this is just too hard? Maybe it's a big project, a personal goal, or even just the idea of starting something new. That overwhelming feeling kicks in, and instead of making progress, you freeze. You're not alone in this. It's something we all feel at some point. And you know what? It's okay to feel that way. Really, it is. But here's the thing. While it's normal to feel overwhelmed, it doesn't mean you're stuck. When you think about it, why does something feel too hard? It's not the challenge itself that stops us. It's our perception of it. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "Difficulties are things that show what men are." In other words, the things we think are too hard are often the very things that shape us. Challenges don't define our limits, they reveal our character, but knowing that and acting on it are two different things, right? Let's talk about why we feel this way. Imagine you're standing at the bottom of a massive mountain, looking up at the peak. It seems impossible to climb. The thought alone is exhausting, so you decide to stay at the bottom, convincing yourself it's safer there. But here's the truth. The mountain doesn't shrink because you avoid it. It stays there, waiting for you to take the first step. That's where the magic happens, not at the peak, but in the decision to start climbing, one step at a time. The idea of breaking down big challenges into smaller steps is nothing new, but it's powerful. The Stoics didn't expect perfection, they expected progress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the situation at hand." Think about that for a moment. When something feels too hard, it's often because we're trying to tackle it all at once, instead of focusing on what's immediately in front of us. Here's an example. Let's say you want to run a marathon. The idea of running 26 miles is intimidating, isn't it? But you don't start by running 26 miles. You start by running 1 mile, then 2, then 3. Each small step builds your confidence and ability until one day, the big goal doesn't seem so impossible anymore. The same applies to any challenge, whether it's starting a business, learning a new skill, or making a major life change. But let's address the emotional side of this. When you feel like something is too hard, it can bring up feelings of inadequacy. You might think, "I'm not strong enough," or "other people can do this, but I can't." Those thoughts can be heavy and they're hard to shake. So let me remind you, it's okay to feel this way. The important thing is not to let those feelings stop you. Here's where Stoic philosophy comes in again. Epictetus taught that while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. When you're facing something that feels too hard, pause and ask yourself, what can I control in this moment? Maybe you can't finish the entire project today, but you can start brainstorming ideas. Maybe you can't fix everything, but you can take one small action to move in the right direction. The key is to focus on what you can do, not what you can't. Another helpful strategy is reframing the challenge. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," try saying, "This is an opportunity to grow." It might sound simple, but this mindset shift can make a huge difference. When you view challenges as opportunities, they become less intimidating and more manageable. And remember, the hardest things often teach us the most valuable lessons. Let's also talk about resilience. The Stoics believed that resilience isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about embracing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That means the obstacles in your path aren't there to stop you, they're there to guide you. Every time you face something hard and push through it, you become stronger and more capable. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Now let's get practical. If you're facing something that feels too hard, start by breaking it down into smaller, manageable pieces. Write out the steps you need to take, no matter how small they seem. Then focus on just one step at a time. Celebrate each small win along the way. It's those little victories that keep you moving forward. Another tip? Remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place. What's the goal you're working toward? What's the bigger picture? When you keep your why in mind, it becomes easier to push through the hard moments. Maybe your goal is to provide a better life for your family, improve your health, or fulfill a lifelong dream. Whatever it is, let that purpose fuel you. Finally, don't be afraid to ask for help. This doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're using your resources wisely. Whether it's seeking advice from someone who's been in your shoes, finding a mentor, or even just talking to a friend for encouragement, support can make all the difference. So, the next time you catch yourself saying, "It's too hard," stop and take a deep breath. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but it's not okay to let that stop you. Start small, focus on what you can control, and remember that every step you take brings you closer to your goal. Challenges are where we grow. They test us, shape us, and ultimately make us stronger. As Epictetus said, difficulties show what men are. So don't run from the mountain, start climbing it, one step at a time. And when you reach the top, you'll look back and realize that the hardest part wasn't the climb, it was deciding to start. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed today. Those excuses, I don't have enough time, I'm not ready yet, I'll start tomorrow, I can't do it alone, and it's too hard, they're not just obstacles. They're stories we tell ourselves to stay in our comfort zones. But here's the thing, comfort zones are safe, yes, but they're also stagnant. Growth happens when we step out, face those excuses head on, and take action. The Stoics remind us that while life is unpredictable and often challenging, we have something far more powerful than the obstacles in our way, our mindset. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that for a moment. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, those are completely within your control. And that's where true power lies. So, which excuse resonates with you the most? Maybe you've caught yourself saying, "I don't have enough time," or "I'll start tomorrow." Or perhaps the idea of doing something alone has held you back. Whatever it is, the first step is recognizing it. Awareness is the foundation of change. Once you see the excuses for what they are, you can start rewriting the narrative. And let's not forget, progress doesn't have to be big or perfect. It just has to be consistent. Take small steps, celebrate your wins, no matter how small, and remind yourself that every bit of progress is a step closer to the life you want. The Stoics didn't focus on grand gestures. They focused on daily discipline and intentional action. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these excuses do you struggle with the most? Is it time, fear, or maybe the belief that it's just too hard? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if you've found a way to overcome one of these excuses, share that too. Your story could inspire someone else. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By doing that, you're not just helping this content reach more people. You're committing to your own growth. Don't forget to hit the bell so you'll get notified about future videos that dive deeper into Stoicism and practical ways to improve your life. And as you go about your day, remember this: the hardest part of overcoming any excuse is starting. Once you take that first step, the rest becomes easier. Challenges are where we grow. They test us, yes, but they also reveal what we're capable of. As Epictetus said, difficulties show what men are. So start now, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because life isn't waiting, and neither should you. Take that step, however small, and keep moving forward. I believe in you, and I know you can do this. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and keep living with intention.